Sure.
But still there's some effort, some irritation, because there's no object there, but you're just what I think. Yeah, of course, I'm saying again, what I think is awareness. I'm all the time making an effort to look without objectifying, just to point my mind to the experience of awareness.
Right.
And so, because there's no object there, there's no object as we see if it's a quiet mind or
Sure,
it's a
sure.
moving mind or whatever. I'm all the time finding myself making some effort there, some irritation, looking for.
So your question is, or you're saying that because in this practice there's no object, you need to put more effort to be in the practice because you have a tendency to go off to an object. Is that the question?
Yeah, but it feels it doesn't have the same quiet and spaciousness as when I do have an object and I can settle my mind on it. Here, it does create more alertness, but there's some. It's almost like I'm I don't want to say oppressing my thoughts, but I'm not letting my thoughts arise. I'm all the time with them.
Well,
so it seems like there's an effort there which doesn't really let me go into a more quiet state of mind.
Yeah. And of course, in this practice, we're not trying to block thoughts. So if they arise, let them arise. We're just not paying interest to them. Blocking them, of course, is just going to irritate us. It's going to be turbulent. So trying to block appearances is not going to work. So just forget about that. But yes, I mean, in any of these practices as a beginner, we need to put effort. And we're going to actually see this in the chart here. There's a flame here along the side of the road, and we see it down the bottom. It's very big. And as we go up, it gets smaller and smaller, and even well before we achieve Shamatha, it's gone. Which means that the amount of effort we need to sustain mindfulness and introspection as a beginner is quite a lot, because we're not used to it. But as we progress in this practice, it actually becomes effortless. So I think it's the same here, and particularly in this case, is that we're not used to resting in awareness. We're used to engaging in objects. That's our strong habit. So I think the effort is to try to not do that, because not to follow our habit, our strong habit. And so if the more we do that, I think the more you'll get in the habit of simply resting, and the less effort required, and it will become spontaneous eventually. So it's okay.
How did they explain the idea that there's awareness of awareness? Is it another awareness that experiences awareness, or is it
So the question is there another awareness that observes the awareness?
Because by definition, awareness is awareness of something, not
Right, and so this is then a valid question for Vipassana. We can find out in Vipassana. We can look and find the answer ourselves. I could tell you something and one way or the other, and you go, okay, he must know what he's talking about. I'll accept that, but that's not going to help us, what I tell you. What's going to help you is what the reality is, and you'll find that out in your Vipassana practice. Then you'll know from your direct experience. Come on, tell us. Okay, this evening's topic. And we may actually even do a little practice about this on day 9, if we have time. We may get to have a little bit of a...
Glen, we need more days.
More days. We need to duplicate day 9, do we? Well, I think our paper thing is falling off there. We can leave it now. But maybe later someone can patch it up. Okay. So we said that the various teachings of the Buddha we can categorize into these three groups called the three turnings of the wheel. And the first of those was the Four Noble Truths. And these systems of teachings, of course, the goal of the spiritual path is nirvana, personal liberation from suffering. And how we achieve that goal of nirvana, of course, is to eliminate the distorted view of reality in our mind, our fundamental ignorance. And so here then the wisdom practice, vipassana practice, is to come to realize no self, that we do not exist in this solid, autonomous way that we think we exist. And so these systems of teachings, of course, are the basis of the modern Theravada Buddhist traditions. And these systems of teachings, from these systems of teachings, we have two philosophical systems evolving in ancient India. Which are called Vaibhashika and Sautrantika. The perfection of wisdom teachings, in those teachings, the Buddha said, actually there's a further goal than nirvana. The further goal is enlightenment. And he also said here there's a deeper level of ignorance than simply grasping to self. At the deepest level, the ignorance we suffer from is this grasping onto independent me, independent world. So therefore, to eliminate that, in our Vipassana practice, we need to come to realize what's called emptiness. So emptiness simply means everything's empty of independent existence. Nothing exists independently. And from these systems of teachings, we have a philosophical system developing in India called Madhyamika. And then in the third system or wheel of teachings called Fine Distinction, one part of that was the idea that, of course, in this system of this wheel of teachings, similar to the second one, the goal is enlightenment, same goal. And remember, in these systems of teachings, what they're saying is that there is no independent world there, external, because it's internal to the mind. So they also talk about the idea of emptiness, but not the same meaning. Here, emptiness means the world is empty of being external. There is no material world. It's empty of being material. It's internal to the mind. So that's what emptiness means here. And these system of teachings form the basis of what's called the Chittamatra philosophical system. Now, to have a little bit of a look at these, we've got a handout here called the classification of tenet systems. So tenet system is just one of these philosophical systems. And here we've got some systems, non-Buddhist and Buddhist, because also at the time of the Buddha, of course, there are a number of traditions at the time of the Buddha who also had their own philosophical ideas. Now, in all of these systems, we are trying to, of course, find out the nature of reality. And at the moment, of course, we have a distorted view of reality, and so we actually are falling to one of two extremes. The two extremes that all of us are stuck in is the extreme of existence and the extreme of non-existence. The extreme of existence here, or in general, is where it's sometimes called the extreme of superimposition. Which means we are superimposing something on top of reality. We are adding something on top of reality that doesn't exist. Like a simple example is, we know that reality, everything we experience, is changing moment by moment, impermanence. But in our experience, we superimpose that things are actually stable, they're not really changing. So we're stuck in that extreme. We are superimposing stability on things which are actually changing moment by moment. So that's an example. So generally, we are stuck in this extreme, that we are superimposing something on reality. And according to the Madhyamika system here, what we are superimposing is that everything we experience is interdependent, is dependent. What we are superimposing on top of that is the fact that things are independent. That's how we see things. We see things as existing independently, existing there. So this is where we are now. We are stuck in that extreme. And the challenge, of course, is to strip away what we put on top of reality. And the thing is that what we do is we've actually put a couple of layers of things on top of reality. So the challenge is to strip away everything we've put on top of reality without stripping away reality itself. If we strip away reality itself, we end up here, non-existence. Sometimes called deprecation. Deprecation here means denying or stripping away things which actually exist. So this is the challenge, is to, and all of these philosophical systems and also the non-Buddhist systems tend to say that we've put something on top of reality and we need to strip that off. But each one of them has a different idea about how much to strip off or what to strip off. But they all say in their own philosophical systems that a certain thing they have to strip off, and then we find what's called the middle way. The middle way between these two extremes in terms of stripping enough off but not too much. Because if we strip away reality, we end up with nothing left over, non-existence or nihilism. Is that okay?
Too simple.
Too simple? I'm trying to make it simple, specifically for you. I know you like simple. Okay. Now, here, if we look at it says Buddhist tenet system. So what do Buddhists do? It says here, Buddhists refute the existence of the referent object of a view of permanent, unitary, independent self. So a lot of non-Buddhist systems at the time of the Buddha had the idea of liberation, of rebirth, and so forth. And a number of these traditions were saying that the person who went from life to life and achieved liberation was an Atman, was the Sanskrit word, usually translated as self. And that Atman or self was unchanging, unitary, and completely independent of everything else. So that's what they say is reality. But from a Buddhist perspective, that is something we've put on top of the person. The person does not exist as something unchanging, unitary, and independent. So for Buddhists, most of these philosophical systems who assert this, they're stuck here. They've put something on top of reality, and so all Buddhist philosophical systems would negate this idea. And that's what it says here, that all Buddhist philosophical systems say there's no such person. It's not, there's no person that is unchanging, unitary, and independent of everything else. Now, then within the Buddhist systems, we see that there are first what's called proponents of true existence. So true existence here is another word for independent existence. So all of these philosophical systems, except Madhyamika, so the Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, and the Chittamatra, they say things exist independently. But Madhyamika says, no, no, no. So for Madhyamika, all of these other philosophical systems have superimposed independent existence on reality. There's no independent existence in reality. And when we talk about independent existence, in the text, a number of terms are used. Here we have the term true existence. So generally, in English, something is true if it doesn't deceive us. Now, the world appears to us to exist independent of us. If it really did exist like that, it would be true. Meaning the way in which the world appears and the way in which it actually exists matches. So true existence means existing in the same way in which it appears. The world appears to exist independent of us. If it really does exist like that, it would be true. That's true existence. Another term you often hear or see here for that is inherent existence. So the word inherent existence, and you'll see this word a lot in these Vipassana texts in the Mahayana, inherent existence has the idea of things being self-existent, that the world is made up of many separate discrete things, each one having their own unique identity. So that's inherent existence.
What is the opposite of inherent? It will help us to understand.
Well, all of these mean independent, so the opposite of all of these is dependent. Dependent existence.
So there is one opposite for all of this group.
Yeah, all of this group have the same meaning. They're just different terms describing independent existence.
Can you repeat that inherent existence, please?
Sure. So inherent existence, the term has the idea that things are self-existent, that the world is made up of many separate discrete things, each one having their own unique identity. Then the other term that you often see is existing from its own side. So the term existing from its own side has the meaning that things don't need an observer to exist. They simply exist from their own side without the need of an observer. All of those three terms mean the same thing. They all mean independent existence, and they're describing that from different perspectives. So here then, when in this chart it talks about those who accept true existence, we're talking about those who accept independent existence. So these two schools here, the Vaibhashika Sautrantika from the Four Noble Truths, remember here, there is an independent objective world out there. No problem. There is an objective world there. So they accept this, of course. There is an independent world there. No problem. The problem is, here in these two schools, the problem is only how we see ourselves as a person. How we see the world is not a problem. Independent world, fine. The only problem is how we see ourselves as a person. We overinflate the sense of me. We're grasping onto what's called a self. That's the problem.
But they think that things are not permanent at the same time, right?
Correct.
So how does
How what?
To me it sounds kind of contradictory.
What's contradictory?
The things exist of their own side and they don't exist.
That they exist from their own side, yes. They accept that.
But they're not permanent.
Permanent. Remember the word permanent means it's not changing from moment to moment. Yeah. So
it exists.
Classical physics. In classical physics, things exist from their own side. They exist independent. There is an objective world out there made up of atoms and subatomic particles. Are those atoms and subatomic particles permanent? Are they not changing? I think they change, no? According to classical physics. Don't they?
Yes.
Everything's changing according to classical physics. And the world is independent of us. Same view in Vaibhashika Sautrantika. More or less similar to classical physics. There is an independent world there, made up of tiny little particles, all changing.
It's funny that you use the physics to make things simpler.
Physics is something we learnt at school and generally we accept because science tells us it's like that. But of course, when you go to quantum physics, different story. So this Madhyamika view, which we're going to look at shortly, there has a lot of similarity with quantum physics. But we'll get to that. So, therefore, here, it says here, the ones who accept true existence, they are these ones who, it says proponents of objects, it says here. Objects means external independent world. So the ones who accept that are Vaibhashika Sautrantika. The Chittamatra, they also say there's independent existence because the mind is real. And actually the things we experience exist independently, but not externally. So even though they refute an external world, they still say the mind and the things that we experience exist independently. The things we experience are internal to the mind, but they exist from their own side. So they also, like Vaibhashika Sautrantika, accept independent true existence. They say if things don't truly exist, independently exist, they don't exist at all. Whereas when we come now to Madhyamika, as we see here, they refute independent existence. So for Madhyamika, nothing exists independently. So the Madhyamika means middle way. But actually, all of these schools claim to have the middle way between these two extremes. So, if Madhyamika view is the correct view, why do we bother studying these other schools? The reason is that this view of emptiness, not easy to understand. And normally what happens is, if we've not studied the other systems, and we go straight to Madhyamika, and we try to understand emptiness, normally the most common thing is we flip from this extreme to this extreme. That we think that emptiness means nothing really exists. Because we are here firmly camped in the extreme of existence, that everything exists independently. And in fact, everything we've ever experienced in our entire life has always appeared to exist independently. We've never seen anything in any other way. So we never question these appearances. But when in our Vipassana practice we investigate these appearances and we come to see, well, oh, hang on, things are not existing independently, then we misinterpret that experience as nothing exists at all. So we tend to flip to the other extreme. So therefore, to help avoid that, it can be useful to understand these other systems. Because if we can talk about the two extremes like this, these are like the goalposts. We're trying to find the middle way. For the Vaibhashika school, the goalposts are, this is the extreme of existence, and non-existence is down here. So we're now camped here. The Madhyamika view is that the middle way is about here. So if we're way over here and we see this view of emptiness, then we think, oh, nothing exists, because we're way over there. But the Vaibhashika, they say the goalposts are here, the middle way, reality is there, we're here, we understand Vaibhashika, we go, okay, well, reality's like that, so we move to here. But then Sautrantika says, no, hang on, the goalposts are here, this is the middle way. What the Vaibhashika said was non-existent actually is the middle way. So then we've moved from here to here, then we look at the Sautrantika view and we go, okay, that makes sense, and we move here. And then the Chittamatran says, no. What you think is the middle way is the extreme of existence. The goalposts are down here further. This is the middle way. And then when we study Chittamatra and appreciate what they're saying, we go, okay, so the middle way is there. And then finally, the Madhyamikas say, no, you Chittamatras, you got it all wrong. The goalposts are here, and this is the middle way. And then we can move from here to here without jumping to the extreme of nihilism. So we're sort of moving up slowly so that when we get to this view, we're not so far removed from this understanding that we misinterpret emptiness to mean nothing exists. So this is why it's helpful to appreciate the other philosophical systems, because they're like stepping stones to the Madhyamika view. Now, of course, in the Madhyamika view, we say things like, everything's empty of inherent existence. And of course, that easily rolls off the tongue. Oh yes, I accept nothing exists independently. Everything's empty of inherent existence. But I think, often we're kidding ourselves if we think we really appreciate what that means. It sounds good. Oh yeah, I know everything's interdependent. Yeah, that's true. Okay, I accept Madhyamika. But I think we really don't appreciate what they're saying. Because what happens is, when we... We don't appreciate what they're saying because what happens then?
They don't appreciate what you're saying.
You do. Because what happens is, we think we know this, that the Madhyamika view, then we sit and meditate,